I think I have to click go live.
This is so strange because it just looks like I'm on FaceTime to you.
Okay, I think we're live.
We're live?
Let's go!
Yay! 15-minute long struggle.
Woo! Yeah,
Hey.
sorry friends.
Hey everyone.
Hi. I'm not a very technical person, so wait.
Yeah.
Can people in the chat hear?
Can they hear me?
There's gonna be like a little bit of a delay. I forgot that there's.
Oh yeah, okay.
So they're
So
probably...
I can't actually see that we're on a live video right now. It just looks like I'm FaceTiming John.
Right.
So.
We're live.
Yay.
All right, they're all saying hi. This is great. We have like 500
Yay.
people in here.
Can
Hi
you hear
everyone.
me?
How's it going? So to give a little context to what we're doing here, I'm gonna give some time for people to stream in because it looks like the viewers are like going up and up. So Jade, any interesting things to pass the time?
Well, I feel like an interesting point is that yesterday was your birthday.
It is. I'm
Shout
20.
out to John.
Yeah.
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 Do you want to tell everyone what you did yesterday? Because it's pretty cool.
I had they're like, can't hear mic muted. No, it's not. I can see the audio. We already had that issue.
Yeah, we've on that.
So what you were talking about yesterday, birthday. Had a meetup. First meetup ever. Was so fun. And yeah, I think I'm going to do a lot more of those. I had this idea, actually, for a meetup that I think would be super fun, which was, because like everyone there was like a student, like a university student.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, which was super cool. Not that, like it was just interesting because they were people that like I just would have hung out with anyways. And I was thinking it'd be super fun because there are all these like cafes and like co-working spaces that you can rent.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it'd be fun to do that like once a month or something and just like have these people come by like during school or whatever and literally like do homework if they want to. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be super
cool.
Okay. We have like 800 people now.
Oh my god, 800 people. Hey, hello everyone.
I think it's going to keep going up because it has,
Mad.
but let's explain what we're going to do here. So why are we learning coding?
Okay, so I've never coded before, literally have zero experience. It was never really like an option at my school, no one ever really inspired me into it. But for uni, it's kind of like one of the requirements is that you have like some level of understanding of coding. And that was actually something that attracted me to the course, is just like how broad it was, because coding is something I've always wanted to learn. And who better to learn from than our good friend John Fish? I mean, that's kind of the context behind it. And I just thought it'd be cool to have, like an actual physical teacher.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also I saw that you were learning coding and I was like, but why don't I just teach you? So Jade and I are friends through YouTube.
Are we? No, I'm joking. We are. It's actually so strange. Because I actually started off as a massive John Fish fan.
Really?
Like, yeah, I did.
Yes. This is good.
Which is strange.
Well, I didn't know about you until you commented on my videos.
I was like, that super fan in the comments.
But now I'm a massive Unjaded Jade fan. Watch every video.
Oh my god, wow.
Anyways, so basically the plan is I'm going to walk through, I'm not sure how far you are along, Jade, and I'm not sure how far people on the internet are along in terms of learning coding, but I think it makes a lot of sense to like start from the very, very like beginning, like literally installing the coding software that you need. Because I think that's going to be valuable to people who just have zero experience, because this is going to be tailored to those people. I'm not sure how far we'll get. I think it's going to be like 3 hours, we said. And we have like 2 hours and 40 minutes to go. So,
yeah, and you can always like come revisit it. Like, you'll save it on your channel, right, John?
Yeah. So it'll be on the channel. That's how most people probably are going to watch it. So with that in mind, let's download some software.
Oh my god.
So the first thing that we need, we're going to be learning Python, obviously, because that's what you wanted to learn. So we need Python, which you probably already have, but if you don't have it, just go to python.org. And it doesn't really matter whether you use Python 3 or Python 2, but most people are going to be on Python, just the latest version, 3.7.4.
That's the one I've got.
Yeah. So, save it, open it. I've already got it installed. And if you're on Mac, you're going to have Terminal already installed on your computer. So you can find it by pressing, this is like a fun little hack for Macs anyways. If you press Command plus space, you open up Spotlight, and then you can search for anything on your computer, which is like the only way I get around now. So do that, type Terminal.
Why have I never done that before?
Because you're not an epic hacker, but you will become one.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Give me 3 hours.
Exactly. Cool. So with this, with Terminal open, do you see it? Okay, so this is where we're going to be running our script. So the idea is we're going to write our script in like a text editor, and we'll download that in a second, but we're going to run it in a terminal. And this just gives us greater flexibility for a few things. So to test it, just literally type Python and hit enter. And tell me what you see.
Python 3.73.
Beautiful. So, so that means your install worked fine. You can see, if you're watching my screen, you can see that mine actually says 2.7. That's because I have both versions going. So I type Python 3 to get the 3. I guess I don't have the latest version, but that's okay. I have 3.6. Okay, so then press, what you're in right now is you're in what's called a shell, which means it's like an interactive shell. So you can type things and it'll respond to you. So for example, you probably already did like the hello world thing, but you can do that. You can type print hello world within this shell, and it's just going to return it.
Amazing.
You're seeing it? Beautiful. So this is a really useful tool for just like learning little things. Like if you want to, figure out how does this one function work or whatever. The best way, rather than going through creating a whole script and whatever, you just fire up a shell, fire up an interpreter, and just go from there. But we don't need that right now. So what I would do, press Control D, and that'll exit out of the shell. And we'll just kind of put it over on this side.
Cool.
So then the next thing that we want, I just blocked you out. The next thing that we want is we want to download our editor. So the one that I like is called Sublime Text. So just Google that. A sophisticated text editor for code.
Wow. Okay. I'll download that.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. It has a few fun features, and it's a little better than, what were you using before this?
It was like Anaconda Spider or something.
Yeah, that's a Python thing, because Python's like an animal. All of the the like libraries and stuff, like Anaconda's like a package manager for Python, I think. But we don't need that. Oh, that's too fancy. We don't need that. So yeah, Sublime Text 3, download it, install it, let me know when you're there.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I'm going to open up. Oh, you can't see the code for that, guys. Anyone who saw that code is spoiling a future video.
Oh.
I say that and I open it again so I can close it.
I can't even see your screen. We need to do the Zoom thing.
Oh, yeah. Last time we did this, I have so many Sublime windows open. I should have closed these beforehand. It's fine. Yes, okay. We're...
okay, it is still downloading.
The Zoom thing?
Sublime. The Sublime.
Okay, you work on getting Sublime working. Wi-Fi. I'm gonna work on getting us a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Okay, join with computer audio. All right, if my audio goes away, guys, for a second, don't worry, it'll be back. people in the chat are saying to use Vim. I actually do use Vim for some coding. Vim is you just keep working on this, but so Vim is oh yeah, I'm not on. I also use a different terminal. I use a terminal called iTerm, which is just fancier, but it's not necessarily relevant. Yeah, so Vim it's something that keeps you. It's an editor that will run only in your terminal. So it has a few advantages in that it is keyboard only. So it's very hard to teach to beginners and it's very hard to learn. But once you do learn it, you look super cool. Like you look like a hacker. And it's also much faster. So there's definitely an advantage here. So what's like an easy thing? Maybe I'll do like vector.py. So you can see like you literally can't use your mouse for anything here. I mean, you can like go into a mode where you can use your mouse, but it's actually kind of pointless. So you really just navigate around with your keyboard, and you can skip to different files and all these plugins and stuff. It's cool, but we're not going to do it. Have you got Sublime?
I have.
Wonderful. Okay, I have a Zoom meeting. I will.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out how to send it to you.
Yeah, if you just text me the ID.
Yeah, that's right. We're on a texting basis, guys. Okay. I might just need to write it out. Yeah. I almost said it out loud, and I was like, wait. It's a bad idea.
That would be a big meeting.
That'd be fun.
Cool. I'm
All right.
joining. I
We...
hope this doesn't affect my audio. You're viewing John Fisher's screen, eh?
Do you want to turn off your webcam in Zoom? Because you just disappeared. Yeah, there you are. Yeah.
Better. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Beautiful. So, time to start coding?
Let's do it.
Okay, so make a new file. Call it whatever you want. Yeah, just like a Python file, so .py. So I'll do like jade.py.
New file. I'm literally so beginner. I'm like, how do I even do this?
Command N.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get you a new file.
We're good.
Oh, cool. I can see. Oh, never mind. I thought I could see your screen, but it was actually just my screen delayed for the stream. And I was like,
You are not that advanced yet.
Okay.
Next slide.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Okay.
someone said cringe. Shut up. Okay.
Right.
So you've got your new file, Python. So,
Yeah.
First thing that we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that everything's working. So do the print hello world again with our quotes. And then what you're going to want to do is open up your terminal. And you need to find where you saved the file. So we're going to learn some command prompt shortcuts, which are going to be very helpful and nice to you
Okay.
for just getting around. So once you have your file with print hello world in it and saved, then what we're going to do is you're going to go back to terminal. And you're going to navigate through your computer. Now, what you're probably going to see in terminal, you're probably going to see something like Jade at Jade's MacBook or something. And then like a squiggly sign. So I'm going to get you to type ls.
Yes. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so type ls.
LS.
Yeah, ls, and then hit enter.
Yeah.
And you're going to see all sorts of folders, right? Like words that represent folders. So ls is list, and it tells you, based on the current directory that you're in within terminal, it's kind of like navigating through like Finder windows. And ls tells you the possible options for files and folders, etc. So personally, I just saved my file to my desktop. So I see desktop as an option on there. So what you do to move, it's called cd, change directory. So you literally type cd desktop and then hit
with a space?
Yeah, so cd space desktop
Okay.
hit enter, and then you get onto your desktop. And now the squiggly line should say something /desktop, right?
Yeah.
Beauty. Is that where you saved your file, or are we just going to where at?
No, it was in downloads.
Downloads?
It was just the first one there, right? For me to CD downloads?
Yeah. So, okay. So for you, because again, it works in folders. So if you're in your desktop, then you need to do cd ... So cd space ... And that'll get you up a directory. And then go cd downloads.
Wait, cd ...
Yeah.
Then what? It says uses.
Right. And then you should be, so then type ls and see if you see downloads.
I don't. It still says users. What have I done?
How far up is users? Let's see. Oh, okay.
What have I done?
Right. So type, you're in users, so type ls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see like your name? Like your username?
Yeah.
Okay, so type cd and then that username.
With a space?
Yeah. So cd space. It's always cd
Yeah.
and then space and then the directory
Okay.
that you want to go into. So then you're there. Then you can do cd downloads.
What am I meant to be seeing?
It should just say like a squiggly line /downloads.
It still says users. What have I done?
Okay, so that means that your CD thing isn't working. So you're when you so what are you typing? You're saying CD and then space.
CD lowercase space.
Yeah.
Downloads.
But you want to so first you want to do your username on your laptop.
Yeah.
So do that first.
I can get to there.
Sorry? You can get to
I
there.
can get to that, yeah.
Okay. So let's get in there. All these people with a space. Use the tab for suggestions? Yeah. I'm using the tab for okay, so you're now it doesn't say users anymore, or it does say users?
It does say users. What am I doing? Should I start this again?
So no, you're fine. So you're in users, type CD, and then what's your username on your computer?
Wait, I'm starting it again.
Okay.
Okay, wait, let me do it again. Okay, what do I type first?
So what does it say? Does it say the squiggly line, or does it say...
Yeah, it says squiggly line.
Okay, so just type CD downloads.
CD downloads. It now says download.
All right, we're in. Okay. Yeah. So you can use like the tab for autocomplete, but it's a little, can be finicky sometimes. Okay, great. So we have our file saved. We're in the right folder within terminal. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna write in terminal. You type Python and then the name of your file.
Okay.
So mine was Jade.py.
So Python base. Yeah, I called it Jade.py too. Okay.
Wow, that's pretty egotistical of you.
I just called PG.
Okay.
Cool.
So, what are we getting?
It says Python open file.
It says what?
Python open file. Is it not meant to say that?
Doesn't
Oh my
seem-
god, why can't I do this?
Doesn't seem right. Don't worry. So programming is like...
Oh no, it said now. Okay, I just typed it again. It says hello world.
Yeah, okay.
Yay.
But what I was saying is like over the next 3 hours, we're going to have a lot of setbacks on both of our ends probably.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide to learn...
And you can't see what I'm doing either.
Yeah, but if you decide to learn programming, this is just going to be the nature of the beast. I've worked as a professional software developer for like 5 years now, almost 4 years. And I can tell you with confidence that 90% of the job is literally just Googling your errors that you get and like bashing your head into a desk until it works. Like there's very little that can be done correctly on the first time around. So with that said, let's get frustrated. So people are saying screen sharing, use TeamViewer, she'll learn better. So she can see my screen, I just can't see hers. So you can see this like green thing around here. Oh wow, people also probably, okay. Use Discord screen share. We're using Zoom screen share. It's fine. It works just well, and it will be uploaded as a video. So, okay, let's do this. So let's.
Cool.
So the first thing I think that we should talk about. I think it makes a lot of sense to start with just variables, and then from there we're going to go to types. So a variable is very much just like in math, where you might have like an algebraic variable. So, solve for x, right? It's just some string of characters which represents a value elsewhere. And that value could be a number, could be a string, it could be a function, it could be any number of things. So to start off, we're going to just write the most basic script that we can. So we're going to write ahead of our print, we're going to say message equals, I don't know, hi Jade.
In terminal, I'm writing this.
Sorry?
Am I writing this in terminal? Am I writing it in...
No, so go on over to Zoom and see what I'm writing. That's probably going to be the easiest.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you see how we're in Sublime here.
Yeah.
So we're modifying our script. Cool. So we're saying message equals hi Jade. And then what we'll do is rather than print hello world, we're going to print our message.
Cool. We've got it.
Okay, so
I've got that. Hi, John.
Got that. We saved it. Oh, that's fun. So now go back to your terminal, which hopefully you kept open.
I did.
And press the up arrow on your keyboard.
Okay.
And that should get you the last command that you ran. So then you can just hit enter, and it should run the script again.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
You got hi John. I got
hi John.
Jade. Amazing. So it's really valuable to get comfortable with the terminal because when you start to do some programming in other languages, these skills will transfer. So learning how to navigate around your computer, learning how to do basic things within terminal, just little like shortcuts, it doesn't take a very long time, but it's a really valuable skill for kind of like the next level of using your computer, if you will. Because I actually use terminal for non-coding things a surprising amount now. Just because it is sometimes a lot easier for like finding weird files than Finder. So anyways, we've got our message now printed. And so I think the first thing to talk about is variable types. And so in most programming languages, you're going to have a number of basic types. And in Python, this is very easy, but and it's very intuitive because you don't have to type out you don't have to write out what type of variable things are. So for example, in like Java, if you want to have a variable, you need to declare its type. So if we wanted to have message be a number instead of a string that says hi Jade, then we would literally need to write something like int message equals 4, right? We don't need to do that in Python. We can get away with Python figuring out what types just based on what we write. But it is valuable to still know the basic types because it allows us to figure out what operations we can do on them, and that's going to be the next thing we can. So that's a lot of like words. Essentially, we're just going to go over. So the first basic type we already saw is a string, right? And it's just a bunch of characters surrounded by quotes. So, hello Jade. The second one I just alluded to right there is an integer. And same thing in math, it's just a number that doesn't have decimals. Like it has nothing after the point. So, I don't know, we'll say like num is 10. So 10 is an integer, 0 is an integer, -10, 5, etc. The next one is a float. So a float is going to be a number that does have something after the decimal point. And it's called a float just because of the way that computers represent these numbers, floating point arithmetic. It's a little confusing because it just means that certain things that you would expect to be precise are not always precise. For example, like subtracting two numbers. If you subtract like 1.0000000 from 4.00000, sometimes you don't get exactly 3.0 and so on. You get like 2.999999 or like 3.00001. Like it's just a little imprecise at times, but irrelevant for now. For now, we'll just do our like floaty num is like 3.5.
Do you want me to copy what you're doing, or is it just more like for explanation?
Yeah, I would copy what I'm doing just so that we can like play with them.
Okay.
Okay, so then the final type is one of the most important types, in my opinion, and it's called a Boolean, and it's very simple. It is literally, there are only two possible values for it. And I should also say these are not the only types. These are just the basic types. There are more advanced types like enums, etc., that you might get into. There's like dictionaries. We'll talk about arrays in a bit. But for now, these are the ones. So a Boolean can, like I said, only have two values. It can either be true or false. And this is really valuable to us because it allows us to write conditions in a way that they're evaluated as Booleans. So we'll see this in a second. It's a little abstract for now, but for now, I don't know, we'll say X is true or false. And the thing in Python is you need to capitalize the first letter. This is not true in every language, but you can tell, and this is why it's useful to use a good text editor, because it'll highlight it purple if you're using the default theme. If you type something right, that means it's recognizing it as some value. Strings are yellow. Okay. How are we doing?
Cool. We're good.
Excellent. So this now takes us to operations. And so an operation is something that we can do between multiple variables. So there are a number of, again, well, there are an incredible number of operations, but there are a number of very simple ones. So to start, I think what makes sense is we'll learn about an operator that is just, it looks like addition, but what I want to show you here is that the same operator, depending on the type, will do different things. So we're going to start off with creating two numbers. So in fact, let's just delete what we were doing there. I lied to you. We're not going to use it. So we're going to create two ints. So let's say x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 10. And then when we're printing, we'll do print x plus y. Okay. We there?
Cool, we're good. Yeah.
Beauty.
And I just tried it in terminal and it works.
There we go. Yeah, we got 15.
Yeah, cool.
Amazing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to change x to be strings.
Okay.
So I'm going to make mine hello and Jade. Isaac says he's typing how many ums I say.
Is like 100% my filler, don't worry.
No, there will be no more. Only formal talking now.
Okay.
You've done this to yourself, Isaac.
Get your stuff together. Oh, okay, so I put, hi John, how are you? But I didn't put a space after John, so it's just like...
Right. But you see how they get pushed together.
Yeah.
Right? So this is it makes sense, like intuitively. But when you think about it, it's actually doing something fundamentally different than, I said there, not Isaac. So fundamentally, what this is doing is called concatenation. And it means that we're just putting one thing at the end of another. And this is different from addition, which is what we were doing with numbers. So this is just useful to show that types are important when you're doing things like adding things together and so on, because what you'll end up with later, if you're, for example, taking input from a user, is things which should be numbers come in as strings, and then if you add them together, they'll concatenate, and so you'll get 5 plus 10 is equal to 510, not 15,
yeah.
right? And it'll show up as a string.
Yeah. So what would happen if you added like an integer and a string?
What do you mean?
Do that? So like 5, but it's as a number 5.
Yeah, so let's try it out.
Hi,
and you'll see what happens. It's a good thing. So just change x to be 5 or whatever and run it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, so it's just made. Oh wait, no, because I put 5 in quotes. Oh, type error.
There you go.
Okay.
So Python's errors are actually pretty good compared to other programming languages, which will just tell you, unknown exception or whatever. That still happens in Python, but here we get a pretty nice error where it says type error, unsupported operand types for plus, int and string. And this tells us that one of our variables obviously is an integer, one of them is a string, and we can't use plus on them. But if they were, like you found, if they were both in quotes and we would add it together, it would work. So it says, for me, it says 5 Jade. Cool. So now that we have this, we can go to a couple of different directions. We can learn about either more impressive and useful data types, like arrays, or we could go into basic conditional statements, if-else statements. And I personally think it makes sense to go into statements first. So we're going to do that.
Let's do that then.
So the first thing that we want to do is we want to have a blank slate, so we can delete everything.
Okay.
And we're going to type if. And this creates for us the start of what is going to be our conditional. And when I told you earlier that booleans were important, this is where they become important. And so what we can do here is we can say if x print hello world, else print goodbye world. Something like this. Obviously, x here is a variable, and it's going to be a Boolean variable. So for us, we can say x is equal to true. And now when we run this, are you following along? Do you have the code that's on the screen?
I do.
Excellent.
Can I say you type really quickly compared to me? I'm like,
yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So when we have this, we can guess what's going to happen. Obviously, it's very straightforward from this example. We're going to get hello world, right?
Yeah.
But if we were to change x to be false, the other possible Boolean, then we get what we wrote in our second part, in our else, and we get goodbye world.
Got it. So
what this tells us is very simple but powerful, which is that whatever is in between, whatever is after if but before the colon here, if it evaluates to true, then we'll get what happens on the indented block here. And this is useful because we have things like comparatives. So to give an example of this, we're going to change x now to be an integer, some number, whatever we want. X is equal to 5. And now what we can do is in our if statement, within the condition, we can say if x is something like greater than 10, then print hello world. Now what's actually going to happen here is it's going to evaluate this statement here, x is greater than 10, and you're going to get a Boolean value to come out of it. And this is going to kind of happen in the back, but we'll check it afterwards. But it's essentially going to evaluate to either true or false, depending on what x is. It's going to substitute x in and c. And if it's false, it'll go to the else. If it's true, it'll go to the if. So we'll run it. And again, I get goodbye world because I said if x is greater than 10. But if I were to make x something like 15,
got it.
hello world. And this becomes really powerful because we can do all sorts of things within conditions. We can have variables which are changing over time and see how they change over time and do different things based on how they're changing. And so knowing this and having a good grasp on conditionals and if statements is a really fundamental thing to learn. So becoming comfortable with it is useful. We can also make them more complicated. So right now we have if else, but what if it's not just one thing that we're testing for? What if instead of just testing for a number being greater than 10, what if we want to do something if it was greater than 100 as well? So one thing that you might be tempted to do is to do if x is greater than 10, print hello world, else print goodbye world, and then do something like if x is greater than 100, print, x is over 100. But this is not so good because what will happen is we'll evaluate this first bit of code, and then we'll evaluate this second bit of code. And so if you run this with a value of x, say 150, then we get both hello world and x is over 100, right? Which is not what we want. I'm going to change this to be x is over 10 because it's a little confusing. So what we really want is we want it to say something so that it doesn't run both of them. We want it to only run one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut that code, the if x is greater than 100, and we're going to put it ahead of our if x is greater than 10. And then all we're going to do is change that if into an elif. And what this essentially means is it's short for else if, but it's basically saying, okay, the first condition isn't true, let's go to the second one. And then you can string these together for however many you need until the very end, where we can go to an else.
That makes sense.
So now we can run it with different values of x, and you'll see that only the condition which we're looking for is showing up. Amazing.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Beauty. So the next thing to learn, I think, is to get into some basic loops, because we just learned conditions, and we can take that concept that we learned, which is having two variables and comparing them in some way in order to get a Boolean, and we can take that and translate that very directly into something a little bit more powerful. So the first thing that we're going to learn is a while loop. It's very
A wild loop.
Sorry, a while loop. W.
Oh, wild. I was like,
yeah.
Wow,
Wild loop.
Okay.
No, that would be cooler.
Okay.
So we can delete everything, but we'll keep x. We'll keep playing with x. So this is where programming gets powerful and it gets fun. And the reason being is that this is where you can start doing things much faster than humans can do them. So, for example, let's say that we want to print off the multiples of some number, right? So, or let's say, actually, let's do something more fun. Let's print off the first, certain number of squares, right? So let's say we want to print off the first 10 squares. I mean, you probably do that just by your head, right? Like 1, 4, 9, but with a computer we can do this much quicker. So we're going to use a while loop. And so what we'll do is we'll start with x being 1. And then a couple lines down, we're going to write while x is less than whatever we want our upper limit to be. And the other thing we can do is we can write less than or equal to. So this is another one of the operations.
Okay.
Similarly, we can do greater than or equal to, or we can do exactly equal to. These are the fundamental operations. Note how there are 2 equal signs here, where an assignment will only have 1. So when you're comparing, you have 2 equal signs. When you're assigning, you only have 1. So while x is less than, we said the first 10. So while x is less than or equal to 10, we said we wanted to print off the square, right? So what we'll do is we'll write print x times x, right?
Is that times like an asterisk?
It is an asterisk, yeah. That's what we use for multiplication.
Cool.
Okay, so don't run it yet.
Oh my god, I just ran it.
Okay, press Control C.
Okay, yeah, we're good.
Okay, so what happened?
It was like reeling off.
Right, and it was probably not changing. I'll run it here. Wait, I didn't save it. I was like, why is nothing happening? Yeah, it's just printing like a billion ones.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you think that happened?
Because, I don't know, we haven't, like, set any limit, like, end.
Yeah, we haven't changed x at all.
Yeah.
So x starts at 1, and then all that we do is we say, okay, while x is less than or equal to 10, print x times x. And then once that's done, it'll go back to the start, and it'll say, is x less than or equal to 10? Yes. Okay. Go back to the start. Go back to the start. Go back to the start. So what we have to do is we have to update the value of x. So the way in which we can do this is we can say, there are a number of ways to write this, actually. So the first one is, so x is equal to x plus 1. So once we have that and we have that saved, now we can run.
Wait, did you put an indent in, or did that come up automatically?
It came up automatically.
Why didn't mine?
No,
it did.
It's kind of weird, but you can just hit tab and it'll indent for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so now we can run that script, and it's gonna work.
Yay!
Amazing. So the only thing that we would really want to change about this is there's just a better way to write the x is equal to x plus 1. And the way in which you can write it is just because we do this so often, you're updating a variable with a reference to itself. So this is, you write plus equals 1, x plus equals
1. Okay.
So there you go.
Cool.
Our very first loop. So this is the first kind of fundamental type of loop. But there's another one, which is more powerful if you ask me. So a while loop is nice because it will just keep running and keep going, and you can use it for certain things. Like games will use them a lot. If you're writing a game, you'll have a game loop, which is basically like, while running, do this. And then it'll update every frame. And you can do things when you want programs to run forever. You will write things like, while true, or so on. And they're useful for other things as well, obviously. But the loop that gets used a lot, especially in like academics, like if you're doing, if you're solving problems or whatever, you're going to use a for loop. And a for loop is very, very powerful in Python because Python has very strong iterators. So I was talking earlier about how there are more advanced data types, and one of the kind of groups of these data types are groups that you can iterate over things. So they're ordered lists essentially, where you can go through things. We haven't really talked about lists yet. So before we do for loops, I think we go into lists. They're very easy, in Python especially, because again, you don't need types, and you can actually have mixed types. So here we're going to change x, and what we're going to do is we're going to put square braces.
Okay.
So you see that.
Yeah.
And now we can just write out a number of integers. So 1, comma.
So that means it's a list, the square brackets.
The square brackets and the commas make it a list. So do 1, 2, 7, 18, 55, whatever. So we have our list, and now we're going to use a for loop to print out all of the elements in that list. Pretty straightforward stuff, actually. In Python, this is like the best part about Python, if you ask me, versus other languages. In other languages, you need to do things like for int I equal to 0, I, is less than 10, I plus plus. In Python, you can literally write like for element in x, print element. Like, it makes a lot of sense. We could write element, we could write whatever we want here. It's like creating a variable, essentially, a local variable that we can refer to. So we could say for num in x, print num.
Right.
And we can also, so we'll run this just to confirm that it works. You should see your numbers printing out. And we can play with these numbers as well. So again, if we wanted to print the squares of our numbers here, we could print num times num, and we'll get our squares. Cool. So this becomes super cool because we can start to play with things, and we can start to say, okay, what does Python have to offer here? Rather than just like creating these kind of arbitrary lists, let's do some more useful stuff. So we can now actually delete x, and typically when you're writing a for loop, this is just kind of a standard. If you're referring to like a number, you're iterating through numbers. You're gonna say for your variable will be called I. So it's for I, and what we're gonna learn about is the Python function range. So we'll say for I in range 10.
Okay.
Print I times I. So run it and see what you see.
Oh, I've just got like all the square numbers.
Right, but do you notice any difference between what we were doing before with our while loop where we were printing square numbers?
The fact that it ends after 10?
Right, like before we got 1 through 100, right? We printed out 1 through 100. But here we're printing out 0 through 81. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So this is just kind of an interesting. It's interesting and useful, and what we're doing here is okay. I should start over with that. So in Python and in programming languages, oftentimes you start counting at 0. And the reason being is how you access elements of an array. So if we go back to having our array, you can just press Command Z a bunch of times to undo until you get your array. So if we want to access elements of this array, the individual numbers, and we want to print them out, you might be tempted to well, first you'd Google it, obviously, if you want to know. But you might think, okay, if I have some way of accessing the numbers, the first number is going to correspond to 1, the second number to 2, the third number to 3, and so on. The way in which we access these numbers is using square brackets. So when we say print x, first of all, if we just do that, it'll just print out our array, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we say print x and then square bracket 1,
Oh, I got 2 and not 1.
right. The reason being is that we start at 0. So you can write print x square bracket 0, and you should get the first number.
Yeah, okay. What is the reason for that? Why do you start at 0 and not 1?
So it's a good question. There are technical reasons. They're not
But you
really
just kind of
they're
accept
not
it.
really worth explaining.
Okay.
At this point, at least. Once you get into more memory management stuff, if you ever start learning like C++, it becomes more obvious why you would do this. But it is a choice. It's a choice made by programming languages, and it has advantages to it. One of the advantages is we'll see right now, actually, and this is fundamentally why you start at 0. So the first thing that we're going to do, we'll keep our script, but we're just going to write len around x, and we'll delete the square bracket 0. So let's say print len x, and then just make sure you have the right number of parentheses on the right side.
So I got 5.
Right.
What is len? Oh, so it like tells you how many things are in the list?
Exactly. It's short for length. So now we're going to tie this. We're going to take this, and we're going to put it back as a for loop. So we'll go for, so remember where we had the range before, right? We said for I in range 10. So now what we'll do is we'll say for I in range len x.
Yeah.
We can do print x at I.
Cool, got it. So it's just printed all the numbers.
Exactly. But
Right.
if you were to
told it to print all 5, like the length of it.
exactly, but if you print just I, then you get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let me just do that. Oh, okay. So those are like the positions, but not the numbers themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
And you'll note that they start at 0 as well. So it's just important to know that kind of Python has made this choice as a language to start indexing at 0. It's called array indexing. And it starts at 0, and will go up to the length minus 1.
Okay.
So
got it.
yeah, and this is actually going to be the source of a lot of bugs for you in the future, probably.
Okay.
It's called an off by 1 error when you do this. Which is essentially like you're referencing one element, but you meant to reference the one right before it, but you just messed it up. It happens. It's no big deal. But,
so like when you're counting along in a list, you always have to think, right, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3.
yes. Yeah. And it'll become natural over time.
Yeah.
The one that like I still mess up all the time after like 10 years of doing this is the last element. It's just hard to remember that it's minus 1 sometimes. You just kind of forget.
Cool.
Amazing. So now we have the basic tools to start solving essentially like algebraic problems if we wanted to. And we've already seen that to a certain extent. We've been printing squares. And we can start to do more advanced things. So I think one fun thing to do is go from squares to, say, a multiplication table. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So I think this is a good point for like me to stop teaching and to not stop teaching, but for you to start thinking about how we might do this and how we might apply what we've learned so far, because we have the fundamental tools to do this, but it's interesting to think about for yourself. So with the tools that we have, how do you think we could go about doing a multiplication table?
Okay, maybe we make X, I don't know, like lots of round, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then for I in range, I don't know, could you, yeah.
This is one way to do it, for sure. I see where you're going, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was going to say for, like, and then you just pick like a random number and like multiply it against each one. I don't know how you do it. I can't think.
Okay, so one cool thing that I haven't shared with you yet, that might not be intuitive, is you can nest loops. So you can put a for loop.
What does nesting mean?
So you can put a for loop inside a for loop, is what it essentially means. So,
okay.
Remember you asked earlier, like, did I indent that? When you indent
Yeah.
code, it like puts it inside what you're doing. So if you have a for loop and then underneath it you indent, it'll put it inside. And so what we'll do here is we'll say, so we have our for I in range len x. Let's change that. Let's say for I in range 10. Now we can do another for loop. We can say for j in range 10. But it's indented. You see how it's indented like that?
Mm-hmm.
So when we have it indented like this, now previously if we're outside here and we're playing before, we have access to I. Mm-hmm. Now we have access to both I and j. And so what's going to happen, and it's really cool, is it's going to go through, first it evaluates the for I in range 10, right? And it's going to go through the first value of I, which is going to be 0, right? And then it's going to go through all of the values of j. So I is equal to 0, j is equal to 0. Then I is equal to 0, j is equal to 1. I is equal to 0, j is equal to 2. I think the easiest way to understand this is just to print.
I'm kind of following, but kind of not.
Okay. So if you literally just run this script here, mm-hmm. what we should expect to see is the numbers 0 through 9 printed 10 times in a row each.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we change that to be print j instead, then we should expect 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times.
Oh, I didn't say that. Wait. Yeah.
So what this means is that we essentially have the two variables which we need to create a multiplication table, right? And quite simply, it's going to look weird at first, and we can play with that. But we can write print I times j.
Okay, yeah.
So what do you see?
We've got like the 9 times tables.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
The 9, yeah, so that's the last 10 elements, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm scrolling up. Oh wow, yeah, there's loads, everything's printed.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. Okay, explain it to me a bit more, because I'm like getting it, but I'm kind of also lost.
Yeah, it's a little confusing for sure. So what's happening is you really, in order to understand what's happening here, you need to understand mm-hmm. how these loops are working. And it is difficult in Python. This is where other languages, where I said it's annoying how to write loops in other languages, they have mm-hmm. a certain advantage to them in that they're more clear how they work. And this is an issue in Python all around, which is Python is a language that will have things that work almost magically. Ruby is like this too. Ruby is another programming language, also YouTuber. But
shout out to Ruby.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but they're a little bit magic in that you can do things like, you can write things like for num in X, and it just works, right? Like, and it's very cool because you don't need to, like, if you're reading a Python program, you can understand a lot of it even if you don't understand the language, just because it's like English. But it doesn't tell you anything about how it's working. And to do that, you kind of need to dive into either documentation, or you need to go on Google or read tutorials or whatever. But luckily you have me. So before, I think what's useful here for us to know is, how is a for loop working and how are our specific for loops working? So a for loop is going to work by iterating over the elements of a list. So we have a list here, right? We have X. And to iterate over these elements means the first time that we run the loop, the value of whatever our variable here, in our case I, is going to be the first element in the list. So if we're saying for I in X, right? The first time that we run it, I is going to be 1. The second time that it runs, I is going to be 2, and then 3, and so on, until we reach the end of our list, or our iterative object, because it doesn't have to be a list. As soon as we have this, then it's going to stop as soon as it reaches the end. Now, what we were doing before is we're using a built-in function that Python has called range, and we saw that earlier. And all that it does is it generates the numbers from 0 up to whatever number you put in here minus 1. And to test this, we can actually, this is where like the shell comes in handy. So we can go to our terminal and we can, again, type Python or Python 3, whatever it's installed as. And literally just type list and then range 10. But I'll,
in the shell.
Yeah, I'll on my screen type this.
Okay, yeah. It said syntax error. What have I done wrong?
Uh-oh. Did you write?
I wrote it as you wrote it.
Do you have does it underline anything or anything? Do you have the right number of parentheses?
Let me try again. What have I done? Oh, now it just says like the name of my laptop and downloads.
Oh, so you're not in Python anymore.
Is that wrong?
So
no, when I like run it through terminal.
Right. Did you type Python in terminal first?
No.
All right. I wasn't very clear about that. Yeah. Type Python, hit enter. It'll put you into the shell. Then you can start writing Python commands.
Right. Okay. Okay, now we've got it. 0 through to 9.
Beautiful.
Cool.
And so this gives us information about, and now Python is weird about how they do this. You'll notice that if you don't put the list around it, it's going to say range 0, 10. And that's because it's not actually a list. Like, it's not actually an array. And I actually, honestly, people were saying in the chat really, like, lists are different than arrays and stuff in Python. So I'm not fundamentally, like, personally, as someone who codes in Python a lot, the terminology is a little bit weird. But all that you need to know is that these are the items contained within our object, 0 through 9, right? So when we're doing a for loop and we're iterating over these objects, the first time that it runs, our value will be 0, and then 1, and then 2, and then so on. But what happens when we nest a for loop is it kind of creates a loop within a loop. So going back to our code from before, we start I, and the very first time we run it, I is going to be equal to 0 because it's in the range. And then as I is equal to 0, we get to the first line of code, and we say, okay, for j in range 10. So then we start running I is equal to 0, and j starts at 0. And then we get to the next line of code, and it says print I times j. And so we do that, we get 0. And we've reached the end of our internal for loop, right? That's the last line of indented code under the j thing. So what happens at this point is j increments. It goes to the next element in our list. But I doesn't change at all, because we're still within I.
Okay, right.
So I won't change at all until we've gone through all of the elements for j, and then I will change by 1, and j will reset, because we're now in the next iteration of our outside loop.
Wait, no, I didn't get that. Say that again.
Okay, let's make the numbers smaller, I think, to because 10 is a lot. So we'll make them 3. I don't know, I have this code here. Okay. So go back, Command D to get out if you have the 3 bracket things, angle brackets.
Wait, in the terminal? Why do I do Command D? What?
So you're in terminal. Just press Command D if you're inside the shell still.
Yeah.
Beauty. So we run that.
No, I think I'm still inside the shell. How do I get out?
Control D, not Command D. My bad.
Right, okay, now we're back.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Oh, so when I click the up arrow, it does the range, so I need to type. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what do I put again do I just put the name of what I'm doing in Sublime?
Yeah. So
the name of the file.
Just Python jade.py.
Python. It won't come up. What am I doing wrong? Oh, it's okay. No, it's not working. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong in the terminal?
So what are you seeing right now?
I'm seeing downloads, like the name of my laptop. Wait, actually, I think I.
So, again, we have a couple commands that we can use, and we have a couple skills that we can use with internal that we already learned. So, the one skill is ls, which will list all the files and the directories within where we are. So on the desktop, we type ls, and we see everything that's there. If you're in downloads, you're probably going to see a billion things. We also have a fun little autocomplete feature that we learned, where we can say, so we'll type Python space, and then your file is named jade.py, right?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got it. But what you can do is you can start to write it, but if you have like a long file name, you can write like JA, JA, and then hit tab, and then you should get jade.py. For me, I had multiple files that matched JA.
Oh yeah, same. I see multiple. Okay.
But yeah, so then running it, and we changed our numbers to start at 0. The other thing I think will maybe make this more clear is to change our ranges to start at 1.
Okay.
So the way that we do this is we literally just do 1, comma, and we'll make it 4 just so that we get our 1 through 3 times tables.
Hey, okay.
Okay. So
Cool.
One of the fun little things that you can do when you're trying to understand how something works is just like throw a bunch of print statements in there.
Okay.
So
at like different stages, just to...
yeah, exactly.
Right.
So we'll say print I equals, and here's where we can start converting between types as well, which is super easy to do. So if we want to say like print the value of I, right? But we want to include it as a string, like making I equals. All that we have to do is that we say str and then we put brackets and we put I. Following?
Okay. Yeah.
So now we run it.
So that just turns it into a string. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So now we get some idea of how this code is executing, right? And so we have,
cool.
Yeah, I equals 1 here, 1, 2, 3, I equals 2, 2, 4, 6. Amazing. So we're following how these loops are working?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, wait, question.
Yeah.
So, we made the range 1 to 4. Oh, so it only did 1, 2, and 3 because of 0, or because 4 is like exclusive?
Yeah,
like
it's very confusing. It's inclusive on the left, exclusive on the right.
Right. So I do 1, 2, 3, and then 4 excluded.
Yeah. You will forget that immediately, and mess it up a bunch. Don't worry about it.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason that it's exclusive on the right is so that you can just do it with one argument, and it'll start at 0 and go up to that argument -1, because you use this for lists all the time. So it's useful.
Okay.
It's nice that it works like that. But when you're using it for things like this, it's a little cumbersome.
God, there are so many rules. I'm like, right.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yeah. Don't worry about...
Right, I'm going to make a note.
Don't worry about remembering everything at once. Take notes, but more importantly, just like build things. And I think that's what like we're almost at the point now where we can just start like solving basic problems, and I think that's kind of going to be like a fun little thing to do. So there's really just one more thing that I want to show you that you might see, and it's very simple. Before we can go and like just actually start solving problems, because that's how I learn, at least, is just by solving things and learning by doing. Because everything's a little abstract when you're doing this, and you just forget it. So learning by doing is the way to learn programming, I think. So
how did you learn, actually?
How did I learn? I learned for contest programming. So if you want, we could learn using the programs that I learned on, essentially.
Okay. Because
they're all online still. And it's like junior contest programming, so it's not hard stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't present me with like some...
No. I was. It was when I was like 12 or like 11, so I didn't even know algebra, really. Well, I did know algebra, but like, okay. So the last thing I wanted to show you though is it's just called a function. And so a function is like a piece of code that you want to be able to use time and time again, but you might be changing certain arguments that you pass to it. So for example, we can imagine there being a function called square, right? We want something that will square a number for us. So we give it one number and it just returns us that number times itself. Pretty basic, right? But how do we do it? So in Python, the syntax for this, we start by writing def, D-E-F.
At first I was like, def?
Yeah.
Okay, def.
Def. And then this is where we name our function. So we can name it whatever we want.
Okay.
In our case, we'll call it square. And then you put parentheses and the name of an argument that you're going to pass to it, or multiple arguments if you need them. So the argument is, later on we can write like square 5, right? But here it's just going to be a variable, some arbitrary variable name. So we can do like square n.
Okay.
So now we can do whatever we want with n abstract. So, we can write, n plus equals 10 if n is less than whatever. Like we can just play with n here. And then at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to return some value. So in our case, all that we want to do is we just want to return n times n, right? Mm-hmm. But what's important is, like, our function here is very simple, but we could do anything that we wanted here with n. And we could do anything, and when we call it later, it'll substitute whatever we call it with for n in all the code that we write that's indented here. So we can revisit our old program where we're printing square numbers. So we could do for I in range 10, print square I.
Okay.
Amazing.
Cool, that works.
So this is useful. This is incredibly useful, but like the most equivalent thing that I can think of for this is like a function in math. And it actually uses exactly the same syntax if you make it. So for example, you can do like def f of x, and now you can type like the equation for whatever that function is. So let's say we have like, I don't know, some parabola, like 2 times x squared plus minus 4x plus 3. And now we can get the values of, make sure you change square to f. You change the function in. And now you can get the values of that parabola for different x values.
Let me just change. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And like, you can do this with arbitrarily hard functions, and it will take just as long. Like a parabola is pretty easy, but like, I don't know, you could do like whatever degree you want. There's a shorter way to write exponentiation in Python as well. I think I think it's this. You write a double like that, and that'll do like x to the 3, I think.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, like yeah.
Amazing. So I think it's time. I think we have the tools to start trying to solve some problems. So
okay, wait, can I just ask again, what does def mean again? Like
def?
What is
define, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just short for define. It's kind of how like Python does a lot of things. It just shortens like words. So
makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So let's go to a web browser, and we're gonna look up. I think it's gonna be fun to do the problems.
What if we fail?
Pardon? What if you fail? Don't worry. I was never able to get all of them when I was starting out. I never did that well. So write CEMC, CCC.
Wait. CEMC.
Here, I'll just send you a link to where we're gonna download these things from.
Okay.
But this is by my local university. Pass contest. There we go.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's by my local university, University of Waterloo, which is a great university. And essentially, it's just like basic programming. There are junior and senior contests. And the junior contests are for people who are like just getting started with programming, like basic skills. Right. And a little beyond you. There will be some problems on here that we don't have the tools to solve.
Okay.
But the senior problems become very difficult. And they go into the CCO, which is the Canadian Computing Olympiad, and then that will go on to the International Olympiad. I never made these. I was never that good. So I'll send you a link to this, and we'll download the 2019 problems. Um, so we'll download the junior problem, or should we? Let's do the 2018 ones. Do you see the
Wait,
web
so
page?
which grade is it?
So you're on the page that I
Where's the
sent
yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So CCC, so scroll down to the bottom where it says Canadian Computing Competition and Olympiad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'll click 2019 Problems, Tests, and Solutions.
Okay, cool.
And then it'll say Problems, Junior Problems.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll download that.
Cool.
Open it up.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool. Okay. Oh my god, it puts things into words.
Yes. Word problems.
Oh my god, okay. Let's give this a go.
Okay. All right. So.
Oh, it's in French if you want it in French.
You're welcome to Canada. Pointage de rank. I don't know what that word is. Okay, so problem description. So you record all the scoring activity at a basketball game. Points are scored by a 3-point shot, a 2-point field goal, or a 1-point free throw. You know the number of these types of scoring for the two teams, the apples and bananas. Your job is to determine which team won or if the game ended in a tie. Okay. So.
Okay.
What?
I literally am like, where do I start?
Right. So the first thing that I didn't teach you yet, but we're gonna learn, is we're gonna learn input.
Okay.
It's like dead simple. In Python, we can literally say x is equal to int input, and then whatever we want the prompt to be, like, what is the number? And then after that we can do like print x.
Okay. With you.
With me? Okay. So we have input.
Yeah.
And so now we need to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. So the first thing to do, I think, is to like look at how the input's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So the first 3 lines of input describe the scoring of the apples. The next 3 lines describe the scoring of the bananas. Cool. So in total, we're going to have 6 lines of input, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. And for each team, the first line is the number of 3-pointers, second line is the number of 2-pointers, third line is the number of free throws. All that we're trying to do is figure out which team scored more points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we get the 3-pointers, the 2-pointers, and the 1-pointers for each of them. So the program should be very simple. We should just be able to get these variables from the user, multiply them by their respective point values, then we'll compare them to see which team won, and then we'll output based on what the result of that comparison was.
Okay.
So, how do we do it?
With one of our loops.
Let's start with getting the input. Let's just start by getting our numbers. So
Okay.
we just did 1 input. Now we want 6. So this is where we can start just doing like some variable namings. So we'll name our first variable like. Also, okay, so there are 2 schools of thought depending on which language you're using for how you like name variables. There's camel case and underscoring. There's another name for underscoring, but essentially what it means is like camel case is like you start with a lowercase letter and you do like 3 pointers A. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is 3 pointers A. And it depends what there are style guides that you're using. One of the most common ones for Python is I think it's called Pep 8.
Someone's gonna call you out on that.
Pep 8. I got it right. The second time. And so if you're ever wondering how to write nice looking code, you can refer to one of these guys. But there's naming conventions, and so in this case, we're naming lowercase with underscores. So, but like you say here, there's also camel case. And certain things are appropriate for whatever. Like you name classes differently than you type variables. It's all there. The point is, let's get our input. So we can just copy 6 times, right? And just change it. So 2 pointers. Okay. 1 pointers. Okay. And anyone who is familiar with programming at this point is going to be like shuddering at the fact that we're doing this. Don't worry. There are much cleaner ways of writing this. This is just a good way to write things out so that we have access to it. Okay.
I'm not with you.
You're not with me?
Wait a second.
Yeah, sorry. I just copied a bunch of stuff. Also, like in like a contest setting, what you would do is maybe, depending on how much time you have, but you might just call it like A, B, C, D, E, F, and then just like keep track of that yourself.
Yeah. How long did you get to do the contest?
How did I get there?
No, how long does it take? Like,
3 hours. You have 3 hours to do 5 problems, which is more than enough time for the juniors. But the senior problems, generally, people don't finish. In that, if you look at the results for it, are they in the problem set? Oh, I guess not. Maybe they're not posted yet. Oh, wait, it might be here. But if you look at the results for it, it's like, generally, people are, on the senior competition at least, it's scored out of 75, and so to get to the top group you have to score above 48.
Wow.
Each problem then is worth 15 points, so if you get more than 3 problems you're one of the top people in the country. The best that I ever did, I think, was get 3 problems on the senior one, but again, I wasn't very good at contest programming. Some people are insane. I had one friend that made it all the way to the Olympiad, and that's just a whole nother level. The people that do that are insane. And then you get to Harvard and you meet the people that like win the Olympiad, and you're like, whoa, you're cool.
Yeah.
People
okay, yeah, I'm with you.
People are fighting over how to say the past tense of taught. Interesting.
Of what? Taught?
Yeah, teached, taught. It's always interesting to read the chat.
No,
okay.
It's taught.
Yeah.
Taught, I think.
Yes. Okay. So now that we have these variables, what do we do, Jade?
Wait a second. I just expanded my whole screen. Let me get back to you. Okay. I've got so many tabs open and they're not arranged very well. Okay. Cool. So we have to input all these numbers, right?
Right. We have to. Well, we have
For
the numbers.
example,
Like we have the
1,
input now.
2.
So we have a program that takes all the input. So we have all of our numbers. We have variables for them. But what do we do with that?
Wait, but how are these numbers from like this problem?
Oh, we're just going to input them manually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we not need to do that first?
Well, I mean, we can. It's just going to do nothing right now. Like, if we do it, it's just going to prompt us. So we can do, like, 10, 5, 3, 2, 8, 1. And then the program ends. Because it's not doing anything with the variables.
Okay. Okay, so we need to make our for loop.
Okay.
Is that right?
What do you think we're using a for loop here?
What? Why?
Yeah.
Did you say? So that we can get all the data and multiply it by what it's worth.
Okay, it's an interesting thought, but we will use a loop when we're refactoring this later, if we want to make it look prettier. But we already have all the data that we need, in that all that we're going to be doing is running one test case. So you can see when you look at the problem, it says sample input 1, 10, 3, 7, 8, 9, 6, and then output B, right? And the way that it got there was by figuring out the scores of each of those teams based on those inputs, comparing them and printing it. So it actually doesn't use a loop at all.
Right. Do you know what? I'm going to reread the problem because I feel like I've not fully processed it. The first 3 lines of input describe the scoring of the apples. The next 3 lines of input describe the scoring of bananas. For each team, the first line contains the number of successful 3-point shots. Second line contains the number of successful 2-point field goals. Third line contains the number of successful 1.3 throws. Each number will be an integer between 0 and 100, inclusive. Output specification. The output will be a single character. If the apples score more points than the bananas, output A. If the bananas score more points than the apples, output B. Otherwise, output T. Oh, so it's like the if-else thing.
Bingo.
Yeah, okay. So if apples, their data is higher than bananas, then output A.
Yeah.
Elif, bananas score more points than apples, output B. Else, output T. So now I just need to somehow put that into some code.
Right.
Oh, and you're already on it.
Okay, yeah, no, you were writing it. I'm just putting it into the syntax for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but this won't do anything, right? Because these are variables that we haven't defined yet. We don't know the scores yet, so how do we get that?
Okay, so we need to get all this input here and multiply it together to get the output based off of the point numbers. Is that right?
Totally, yeah. Okay,
cool.
So what do we do?
So that's saying the first line of input, the first line of that is a 3-pointer, right?
3 pointers for A, yeah. And we have that as a variable here, 3 pointers A.
Wait, let me get back to your screen so I can see what you're saying. Say that again.
So we have a variable called 3 pointers A, and it takes the first line of input. So in our example case, it gets 10. So let's say it's 10 here.
Okay, so then we multiply that by 3.
Where?
What do you mean?
Like what? Where are we? Like, so down here we're comparing these variables here, like apples and bananas, right?
Yeah.
And these are like the overall scores, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, how do we, like, where are these defined? So
okay, so we'd be doing like apples equals 3 pointers A times 3, 2 pointers A times 2, 1 pointers A times 1.
Exactly. You don't really need to do times 1.
You get me. It's helping me with my thought process.
Totally. I respect it. So then we'll do the same thing for bananas. Okay, and our program should work now.
Cool. Okay, I haven't written any of it. Do you want me to write it?
You can if you want to, or I think yes, you should write it as we go. It doesn't really matter for this one because I'm going to show you.
Even for like syntax and stuff.
Exactly.
I feel like it's good practice. Okay.
Exactly. That's why it's good to know. But really, what you're trying to learn and why we're doing problems right now is you're trying to learn a way of thinking that's algorithmic thinking, and it's uncomfortable to people at first, very uncomfortable, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you for quite some time until it starts to click. And this type of, but it's a super important way of thinking because it allows you to look at a problem and say, okay, if I was a computer, how would I solve this problem? And then translate that into actual code. And this is useful in applications everywhere. Whether it's, I mean, we had a conversation about this already, but you know, for the world, like whether it is computer science or whether it's philosophy or art or whatever, algorithmic thinking is amazing. So you're getting there. People in the chat are proud of you. Yes, she's getting the hang of it.
Oh my god, yes, thanks guys. I need that encouragement. I'm just imagining, because obviously I can't see the chat. I'm just imagining all these like amazing computer science people, like, this is so easy.
Don't worry, they're roasting me too. I'm like glancing up at it and they're like they're like, why aren't you using Atom? Why aren't you using Vim? This is terrible. Fine.
People get angry for no reason.
Welcome to the internet.
I think you're doing a great job at teaching.
Yeah, someone goes, he's just going through the docs but explaining it more poorly. I was like, oh.
Okay. We got there in the end.
Amazing. Okay, so let's run it. Wait, do you have it written out?
I hope so.
Beautiful. So let's run it. And
do you know what I always forget?
What?
I always forget the colon.
Yep.
And then I do an enter, and then it doesn't indent, and I'm like, oh,
yep.
Let's go back and fix that.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
Didn't save it. Okay. What did I get? Literally nothing.
So what happened? You ran it and...
Yeah, but obviously we've not defined what...
Well, we haven't put the inputs in yet.
Yeah.
So you ran it, and now your terminal should kind of be like waiting, and if you type on your keyboard, it should like let you write whatever you want. Do you see that?
Yeah. Okay.
So go back to the file, and well, I can also just tell you the input. So first thing we'll write is 10, enter, 3, 7, 8, 9,
Wait.
6.
Okay. Am I meant to be writing this as you're saying?
Oh, yeah, I don't know why I was going so fast.
Okay, so am I writing this in all the brackets?
No. You're writing this in the terminal, where it's waiting for your input.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. So,
okay. I feel like I haven't really clocked what the terminal is and like how important this is. Okay,
yes.
So you're inputting the information there, and then it's going to run through what we just put in.
Yeah. And that's why we learned in the terminal earlier, people were saying, like, why don't you just stay in the shell? You could just stay in the shell, but this allows you to do input like this. It's nicer. Plus, it's what you'll use in the future. So.
Okay, right. Hit me with the input.
All right. First one's...
Wait, and I, like, put commas in between them?
No, so you do 10 and then enter. And then 3, enter.
See.
So,
okay.
So first one's 10.
Yeah.
Next one's 3, 7, 8... 9, 6.
Cool.
And we should see our output at the bottom.
And it's just come up with like my laptop name.
Right, but
is that right?
But it should have printed B on top of that.
Yes.
You see that?
Oh.
There's our output.
Okay, yes, so B1.
There you go, B1.
What was it? Yeah, bananas are higher than apples.
Yep.
Oh my god! Wow.
So you just solved your very first contest problem. You didn't get a 0. We got it within 3 hours.
It's been a while, but
No, it's okay. This is how you learn. This is how you do it. You suck at it for a long time, and then you get good. So we'll double check that everything's working. I mean, it is working, but you can just run it with all of the input that it gives you, the sample input. So the next one, we'll just run our program again. So 7, 3.
Okay, wait a second. Okay, yeah. So 7,
3, 0, 6, 4, 1.
A.
And we get a tie.
C.
Jade, congratulations. 15 points. 15 points to Gryffindor. Yes.
Oh my god. I won the contest.
Well, you have 4 more problems to do, but...
Oh well, there is hope. And this is like the easiest one, right? Like I'm sure they get harder.
They do go from easy to hard, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are people saying?
Let's see.
Hey, Wild, how
Someone
are you?
said John Fish is a nerd. Someone said, Jade, I love you.
Oh, I love you.
Someone said, keep up the good work.
Yes. You're like, skip.
Raspberry Pi Robotics. Raspberry Pi is cool. I like Raspberry Pi. OMFG, I'm a huge fan of both you and Jade and had no clue you knew each other.
Oh my god, we do.
It's great. I can't wait for pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks. We got the corporate shill in here. We got the one Starbucks employee just like, how do I insert a little advertising?
Clever.
Someone says Unjaded Jade equals hacker woman. I love it.
Boss hacker woman right here. Give me a few years.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the problem set. I'm just gonna run to the washroom. But you just
I
read.
might use the toilet actually.
Okay. well, group. On you guys on stream can read this, and we'll be back in a second.
Yeah, they'll have already all worked it out, and then
they're gonna
tragically do it for like ages. Okay.
Back in a minute, folks. All right, hello friends. I'm back. We'll wait for Jade. What can we do while we're waiting? Oh, have you guys listened to Taylor Swift's new album? So my friend group and I, we have this whole thing where we are very big fans of Taylor Swift. So all the boys have been doing our little rankings. I'm here to share you my tier list for Taylor Swift's album. You can also see the resources my brother owes me on our Minecraft server, which will be happening soon, by the way. I'm literally building a PC right now for me to be able to stream Minecraft. That was like my birthday present for myself. So, yeah. Okay, so lover rankings, tier list. If you haven't listened to the album yet, take a screenshot of this right here. It's the definitive tier list. These are the we've got the S tier songs right here. These are the 3 S tier songs in my opinion. Actually, you know what? No, I need to update this. This is an S tier song, and this is an A tier song. It's good, but it's not. Me and the boys. Oh, welcome back. Hi. I was just showing off my my tier list for Taylor Swift's new album. Are you
love that.
Have you listened to it?
I have.
Yeah.
Not a lot though. Like I need to get on it more. I feel like I've just been so behind on music. So I've been away so much.
That's fair.
Yeah. I brought snacks.
All right.
I brought tea, and I feel really inspired because my tea has a quote on it, and it says, "You ready? This is really cheesy, but whatever. Those who dare to fail achieve greatness." And
there it
I'm
is.
failing a lot right now, so.
No, it's okay. You have solved a contest problem on your first day. It was an easy contest problem, but it still counts. So, all right. Are we ready to jump back in?
Back in.
All right. Like 200 people left when we were gone, but that's okay.
Left. Oh.
I mean,
oh well.
That's fine. They
Okay.
didn't matter anyways. They weren't dedicated.
Yeah. People here right now, you're the real ones. Okay, let's approach a new problem.
All right, you can read it out.
Mm.
I feel like last time I read it and then you had to reread it, so.
Wait, is this problem J2? Time to decompress.
Yeah.
Okay. Problem description. You and your friend have come up with a way to send messages back and forth. Is this us? Okay. Your friend can encode a message to you by writing down a positive integer, n, and a symbol. Okay. You can decode that message by writing out that symbol n times in a row on one line. Okay. Given a message that your friend has encoded, decode it. Input. The first line of input contains L, the number of lines in the message. Okay. The next L lines each contain one positive integer, less than 80, followed by one space, followed by a non-spaced character. Okay. Output specification. The output should be L lines long. Each line should contain the decoding of the corresponding line of the input. Okay. Specifically, if line I plus 1 of the input contained nx, then line I of the input should contain just the character x printed n times. Okay, wait, that bit just went over my head.
Okay.
The output should be L lines long. Each line should contain the decoding of the corresponding line of the input.
Yeah.
If line I plus 1, okay, of the input contained nx, then line I of the output should contain just the character x, printed n times.
Yeah.
I kind of get it, but I'm also like, not really.
So the best way to understand these prompts, because they are confusing. I was reading, I was like, what does this say?
Okay.
Because they're also sometimes kind of just dumb problems because they're just arbitrary. But thank you, Gavin OC, for the $1.99 donation. Let's go. IDE. We're using Sublime Text. It's free. You can download it.
Are you gonna split half with me, please, John? No, only joking.
Oh. Yeah, let me just Venmo you. No, so sample input and sample output is the best way to understand what they're actually saying here. So you can see the sample input. So the first one, it's a 4, and the first line of input is the number of lines in the message. So after that 4, we get 4 new lines of input. It says 9 plus. And we can see how that corresponds to the output, where there's literally just 9 plus signs in a row.
Yeah.
You feel me? And then the 3 minus signs, 12A signs. So it's a very, very, very simple problem, again. But it's actually going to require some things that we don't know how to do yet. But
okay.
But
so you set me up for failure.
I did.
Oh my god. Okay. I was
what was your quote though? Through failure, you will achieve success, or something.
Those who dare to fail achieve greatness.
Big.
I was actually thinking to myself, I'm like, what? Okay. How are we gonna do this one?
Amazing. Right. But we can do most of it without learning new things. So let's do it. We never refactored the old one. The way that we could have written the code in the first problem much tidier and better is to start off with like apples is 0, bananas is 0, and then we could do something like for I in range 6, or just like iterate through, and then just do inputs like that, because you can do inputs within a loop, and we're going to do that in this problem, which is why I want to...
Wait, show me how you would do that for that problem.
Okay, so there's a couple ways. So the first way that you could do it, probably the nicest way, is we could do something like for I in reversed range 1, 4. Now, what's reversed? So I think this is the syntax for it, but we can double check by going into our terminal. Oops. Right. So it just reverses the list, or the iterator, iterative object. I don't know what the proper terminology for that is, actually. But nevertheless, rather than going 1, 2, 3, it goes 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
So then what we can do is we could do something like apples plus equals int input times I. And so it'll go, the first input will be 3 times, second input will be 2 times, and then the third input would be 1 times. We could do the same thing.
Makes sense.
Here for bananas. This just gets rid of a lot of the variables that we had, like the 6 variables. You know, arguably you could also, like, very simply just write 3 times int input plus 2 times int input. I think this would work as well. Like, there are a number of ways. The point, you can write these programs a number of different ways, and it depends what you're writing for. Like, are you trying to write clean code? Are you trying to write code that just works? Whatever. But this problem is ultimately very arbitrary and silly anyways. So let's just delete it and solve our second problem.
Okay.
So what is the first thing that you think we should do?
Put in our input. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. So, but like...
First line of input contains L.
So the first line of input is L, so what should we do?
I actually don't even know. This is not good.
Well,
what... Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, wait, no. What? It signed me out of Zoom.
Oh, no.
Let me just get your meeting code again, sorry.
Yeah. What are people saying in chat? Trioxide for life. People are saying I should try VS Studio Code. I have. It's pretty good. Everyone has like their own preferred... Did you freeze? Oh no. Jade is frozen, guys. Is my stream still up? Stream is still up. Excellent. Okay. Oh, Jade. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, you're muted again. This is bad. This is not good. Frozen on a chill face. That's funny. Let's see whether we can change this. This is happening. This is why we started the stream a little bit late. Because Jade was muted. I hope people can still hear me. Let's see. If I go... Okay, I can hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Amazing. So, where were we?
Right.
So we're trying to figure out what we take first. What do we do first?
Yeah. Let me have another read. Okay, so you have your positive integer n. How do you decode it? You decode it by writing out the symbol n time rows in one line. Mm-hmm. And the first line of input is L, the number of lines in the message, right?
Right.
It's something to do with N and L, but I don't know.
Okay, so one of the things with like algorithmic thinking and like figuring out how to think in this way is learning to like ignore the bits that you don't know and just start from the very beginning. And literally just say, okay, what's something that I do know how to do here? So what's something that we do know, like the very first step to solving the problem, what's the first thing that we need to know?
I don't know.
The number of lines of the message, right? The first thing in the input. So how do we take an input again? Do you remember?
We do the plus minus int. Is it int? Input?
Yeah. So we'll do, so like it's called L, so we can just call it L.
Mm-hmm. Int input brackets 2 quotes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have L, which the problem tells us is the number of lines in the message, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing that it says is the next L lines each contain one positive integer followed by a space followed by a non-space character. But what is the first bit of that tell you? The next L lines. What does that tell you about what we should be coding?
A loop.
Bingo.
Cool.
Okay. What type of loop are you thinking?
For
loop. All right.
Yeah.
Final question. Can you write it? Do you know what the syntax is?
For what do I say?
Sure.
For I in L, or do I put range? Range 80. So I used to do it 80 because it's less than 80.
Oh, that's
Or is that
irrelevant.
irrelevant?
That's just like they just throw these limits on it so that people are like,
Okay.
well, what if it's positive infinity? People are, no, it's less than 80. Don't, just ignore that, yeah.
Okay.
So, for I in range what?
Before?
Well, in the first case,
What is number 4 again? Is that
it would
the
be
number of
4.
lines?
Right, number of lines, which is what in our program?
L.
Bingo. Sweet. Okay, so now we have a loop that's going to run for the number of lines that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what's the next step?
Like how many times it's like written in the row on that one line?
Right. So we need to we need to take in the positive integer n in the symbol, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll help you out with this bit here.
How do I do that?
Okay. So the first thing, maybe we can just take in the input and then we'll extract what we need from it, and I'll show you how to do that because it's not too bad at all actually. And also I'm going to show you where to look for how to do this, because this is how you can like become a self-directed programmer and learn on your own. So the first thing that we'll do though is we'll just get our input and we can call it whatever we want. But I don't know, we'll just be like, or what is it? What's the you can encode it. Okay, so encoded equals input here. And so what we're going to get from this is we're going to get some input that looks something like 4 space plus, right? Or
wait, what is this hashtag?
so that makes it a comment. It just means that the program will ignore it. So see how it turns gray? So it just lets you like write things that you don't want the program to see. So it'll get something like 4 plus. And what we really want from that, right, is we want to be able to extract the number and we want to be able to extract the symbol. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Once we have those two things, it's going to be very, very easy for us to get the output, right? Hypothetically.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we can do, and this is where like the power of Google really comes in, is we can literally just go to Google,
Just Google it.
and be like, yeah, it'd just be like Python, it's string split.
Wait, Python's what? Python's
String split.
split.
Bye, Dave. Thanks for being a moderator. I've been paying attention even if I'm not.
Wait, what?
There's a guy in the chat that was moderating. Being
Oh,
sweetheart,
thank
yes.
you.
Okay, so
Yeah, Python string split.
right.
Okay.
So now you're just scrolling through Google and you see all of these kind of tutorials, Python for beginners, W3 schools.
Yeah.
These are all
I see
references
that.
which are out. Yeah, they're out there for free to help you understand
that's
different
cool.
things. So if there's something that you don't understand ever with, splits or for like strings or anything like that, literally just go to Google and start reading. The best, in my opinion, skill that you can learn is learn how to read the docs. So if you scroll down, you're going to see something that a site that's docs.python.org.
Yeah.
And when you get here, this is literally this is put out by Python. It's the official documentation.
Okay.
And it's amazing because it shows everything that you can do. And so learning how to search through this is really good. So once you're on the page...
it looks a bit overwhelming at the start.
It does.
Because I'm just looking at it, I'm like...
Super.
Cool.
The thing is, you read this completely differently than you'll read any other web page. Documentation, the way that you read it is by searching for what you want. So if you press Command F in your browser, and what we're searching for in this case is split. So you see that we're on like a documentation page for string. We want split.
It's just taken me to anywhere it's a split on this string page.
Right. And the first place... Good. Give me 1 second. Someone just knocked on my door.
Okay. Oh, I love that John has a ring light in the background. Classic YouTuber.
Yes. Yes, I can.
Has got delivery. Who knows?
Yeah. Could I have 2 minutes before we start anything? I just have to left because I'm so good.
This is so strange for me because it just looks like I'm on FaceTime. I can't see YouTube. Oh, hello. What was it?
Hello. Yeah, someone has come to fix something on my door. So I think we're gonna have to end this.
What?
So let me walk you through real quick though. I've got a couple minutes here. So so we'll end in a few minutes. So
if you need to go, it's fine.
It's all good. I asked for a couple minutes. So the first thing that we do though, so we search for split, right? And we find this link to str.split. And we go here and it says it returns a list of the words in the string.
Yeah.
Super useful because what we're doing is we have a string that's got 2 elements separated by a space. So if we can get those as words, it's really, really valuable. So in order to see how this works, why don't we just pull up our interpreter in the terminal, and we see that we have something like 4 plus, right? That's like what our string would look like, 4 space plus. We do dot split.
In the terminal.
In the Python interpreter. So make sure you type Python first.
Python, and then the name of my file.
No, just Python.
Okay. Then 4 plus. Wait, and then dot split.
Yes.
With like attached to it, or just with a space in between?
Like this.
That was so quick. Oh, I see. Okay, so I didn't have it with quotation marks, which makes sense.
And so do you see what we get out of that?
Oh, okay, yeah, square brackets.
Right. Yeah. So a list. So now what we can do is we can access these elements of the list individually. So if we do input dot split in our code, right? Now we can say our number, which was n in the problem prompt, right? Big N.
With you.
So n is going to be
capital N,
it's going to be the first element of that list turned into an integer, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And our character, whatever it's called, the symbol, call it S, will just be the second thing.
Yeah.
So to see whether this is working, we can just run our program very quickly.
God, I'm feeling the stress for you, mate. I can hear like shuffling in the background.
Don't worry. So we'll run our program and we can do something like the first line is L, and then we'll do 4 plus. All that we're testing for is that was pointless. all that we're testing for is that we're extracting things properly. So here you can see we printed the 4, and we've got the plus, and it's all working out.
Yeah.
So now all that we need to do is very simple. There's a little fact in Python which is interesting, which is that if you, and this is again, operators do different things depending on types. So if you do a string times an integer, what it does is it concatenates that string integer numbers of times.
That makes sense.
So if you have, for example, a times 3, it'll give you a.
Okay.
This is very useful for us because this is exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
So we can do print n times s, right? And it'll give us our decoded message.
Oh my god, genius.
Pretty cool.
Okay. Wait, how do I put the terminal thing back onto my Sublime page? What do I type again?
So press Control D to get out of the shell.
I need to remember that. Control D.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, you can do your...
Jade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's test it out. So we'll use the input that it's giving us. So the first line is 4. So L is going to be 4. And then it says 9 plus.
Oh wait, what? No. Okay, this has gone wrong. I don't think I'm in it right. Am I in it now? What do I type in?
So where are you?
So it says the name of my laptop.
Yes.
Yes.
Does it say...
But it's not like below like it was before.
I guys break up the threshold and install it. Yeah. Right? But he's worried about you being in a conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop
Just
off.
be quiet.
My man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, so I actually do have to go because they're gonna destroy things.
Okay, no, that's
but
fine.
we have the program working, and I'll send it
I'll
to you.
just mess around with it for a bit.
Okay,
You know.
have fun.
But,
Bye. Sorry.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye.